Yeah, maybe.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Benjamin Johnson, and I'm the event coordinator for McNally Robinson Booksellers here in Saskatoon. This event is being held on Treaty 6 territory, which is the land of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and homeland of the Métis Nation. As we listen to our speakers share their words today, may we recognize the Indigenous stories that have been shared on this land since time immemorial. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of A Fondness for the Reckless by Jennifer Jacoby-Smith, published by Your Nicholsworth Publishing, as well as our guest host, Joanne Paulson. I did that the wrong side. Thank you so much to Jennifer and Joanne for being here this evening and for working with us to make this event happen. Just to note that this event is being live streamed, so please be aware of the webcam over there. I'd also like to take this time to encourage you to silence your phones for the duration of the event, or it will be caught on YouTube video forever. If you would like to buy a copy of A Fondness for the Reckless, we have some up here on the signing table behind me, as well as on the desk by where you first walked in. You're welcome to get your book signed before you purchase it, but please remember to stop by the cash desk on your way out. We are trying to run a business. I'm here all night. Jennifer Jacoby-Smith is a writer and content producer in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. After falling in love with the written word as a child, Jennifer has spent over 20 years in media, including the StarPhoenix and local radio, crafting content for clients and special publications across Canada. Recently, she turned her attention to personal storytelling. For her debut novel, Jennifer focused on her other obsession, Canadian music, following the joys and drama behind the scenes of a Canadian boy band in Toronto. Host Joanne Paulson is a longtime Saskatoon journalist who has written for the StarPhoenix, the Western Producer, and the Saskatoon Express, among others. She's also the author of the Adam and Grace mystery novels and the Western Blood and Dust. Everyone, please join me in giving them a warm welcome. That guy right there. There's okay. Okay, great. Take good.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys all for coming. It means so much that you would come when the weather is less than ideal. Can you all hear me? We're good. Okay. I appreciate that you came, both to support me as well as other local authors. And I want to say thank you to McNally Robinson in particular for hosting us and for always being a good support to prairie writers, independent publishers, and local writers. So we appreciate you. So I'm going to take a few minutes just to give you a brief little introduction to myself, how I came to write this book, and I'll introduce you to the world of 10 Past Midnight. And then I'm going to read the first chapter, and then Joanne is going to grill me. So as Benjamin said, I grew up in Saskatchewan in this tiny little town called Wilkie, which is just south of North Battleford. I was the only child of a single mother, and I fell in love with the written word because I would take my books to her salon and I would stand and wait for certain clients to come in. I had them all scoped out and I knew which ones would read me a story. So there I would be 5 years old with my book clutched to me, waiting until they came. And then, you know, those big dryers, the hair dryer would come down and I'd climb on their lap and I'd shove the book in their face and they would read me a story. That's how I fell in love with the written word. Eventually I turned that love into a career. So when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time in my room on weekends and in the evening, creating characters, creating stories. This was how I passed my time, and I loved it. And anything to do with writing was something that I always pursued. After graduation and in my 20s, I was at home with 2 little kids under the age of 4, and I thought I need a second income. I need to do something. And when you have an almost but not quite degree in theology, your options are kind of limited. So I decided to turn to my love of writing. And I found this group where a bunch of women who were also moms were doing freelancing. And I kind of joined in and just threw myself into that. I managed to get a couple of contracts writing essays for mommy blogs in New York before the .com crash. And then I translated that into an internship at the StarPhoenix in the Arts and Entertainment Department, where I got to work with the wonderful Joanne Paulson and the late Cam Fuller. that particular experience was an absolute dream. It taught me so much. I got to interview so many of the artists and actors and bands that were coming through Saskatoon. It was a very enjoyable experience. After that, I went and wrote radio commercials for 4 years. And then I found my way back to the StarPhoenix. But this time I was not in the newsroom. I was in the advertising department where I got to work with Jeannie Armstrong, my colleague who is here. I learned a lot from Jeannie, and over the years we've done a lot of corporate clients and a lot of special sections, and I'm still there with the StarPhoenix creating content for corporate clients across Canada. So that's me. That's how I got to be a writer, and that's how I got to work with content. Lately though, as Benjamin mentioned, I decided I should maybe tell some of my own stories. I've told stories for clients over all the years. Now it's time to tell my own. And as it turns out, my job was kind of what gave me the idea for writing this book. You see, when COVID happened, the last project that Jeannie and I worked on was the Junos Guide. I don't know if y'all remember, but in 2020, Saskatoon was supposed to host the Junos. And Jeannie and I had the task of creating the print guide for the Junos. It was a huge task, and it turned out beautifully, if I say so myself. And we had tickets to all sorts of events that were supposed to happen that week. And of course, 2 days before the Junos, or 3 days, everything shut down and the Junos were canceled. And so when I committed over COVID, because I couldn't make sourdough bread, I decided I was going to become more of a fiction writer. I was going to return to that first love of creating characters and stories and telling these fictional tales that had been living inside of me. So I decided I would write 1,000 words a day. And I very quickly ran out of my ideas in my head. And so I went back to that disappointment of not having to go to the Junos and not having that all take place. So that's when I started writing about the Junos. And then it would turn into a fictional band. And then that fictional band got a name, 10 Past Midnight. So that's how 10 Past Midnight came about. And that's how I came to write A Fondness for the Reckless. I was lucky enough to connect with Heather from your Nicholsworth Publishing. And that's how that all came about. So this is how A Fondness for the Reckless is here. So that's a brief introduction of me and how the book came to be. So now to introduce you to the band. Okay, I will read the first chapter and you'll get to hear more of all of them. But they are a band from across Canada. They come from diverse backgrounds. They have different motivations. And they have come together to create a band. They have put aside their egos to create something that brings them all together. But they are on the cusp of becoming really, really famous and really hitting it big, or breaking up and going their separate ways. So that's how we get to the start of this. So now I'm going to read the first chapter. Okay. I need my coffee.
You can't find them, I brought some.
There we go. Okay. There are a little bit of time skips in this, so I will try to make those clear. It's really clear in the print, but when you're saying it out loud, it doesn't come. But hopefully you'll catch on. 2016, Pearson International Airport. I'm also going to give you the PG-13 version of this, so just be aware. Crap, crap, crap. Indy pulled his suitcase towards Terminal 3 and tried not to scowl at the throngs of people everywhere. It was going to take an eternity to get through security, judging by the lineups. His phone vibrated in his pocket of his worn-out black hoodie. More text messages from Jaxson, Indy assumed, taking his phone out as he positioned himself in the check-in line. 11 messages. Fewer than he'd expected. Another came in while he read through them. Where are you? The interview is at 1. You coming or not? Indy took a deep breath. Everything felt out of tune. The melody he'd been humming that morning as he dressed now screeched loudly in his head, stilted and off-key. Change was like that, a jangly mess of discordant tones and volumes. It would be a while before he would be able to hear anything resembling harmony in his head. But as much as he hated the mental chaos, not to mention upsetting his best friend and bandmate, he'd made his decision. Months of fighting and yesterday's huge blow-up had made the offer in California even more attractive. It felt like destiny had offered him a way out, a way to mute the frustrations. Now he had to face the fallout. He pulled his hoodie over his bleached hair and hoped none of his fellow travelers would recognize him as a founding member of the popular boy band 10 Past Midnight. Okay, we're still in 2016. Now we're in the Red Tree Lounge. Activity buzzed around Jamie Paul as she stood in the employee lounge of Red Tree Records, a boutique music label in Toronto's East End. It's just another interview, Jamie whispered to herself again, but no matter how many times she said it, she knew it wasn't. She pressed her lips together, mindful of not messing up her makeup. She took another deep breath and hoped the rest of the team wouldn't notice. She'd done hundreds of interviews, but never with this much writing on it. Are you nervous? A young man said in an ill-fitting suit. He was an intern, but Jamie couldn't remember his name. Dan, maybe? No, she said, followed by a quick yes. The intern, possibly named Dan, looked genuinely concerned as he handed her a bottle of water. It'll be great. I'm told these guys are super charming. Jamie took a chance. Thanks, Dan. The young intern nodded. She'd been right. Maybe that was a good omen. Jamie took the water and opened it. She swallowed a cool mouthful, hoping it would help. Dan smiled. This is exciting. It's my first big interview. That was not a good omen. She needed everybody sharp, ready, and on top of their game. The last thing she needed was a fresh young intern too Star Trek to do his job. She handed the bottle back to him forcefully and took another deep breath. I'll go and check and see if they're here yet, Dan said. As the youngest person in the history of CBN to be promoted to senior entertainment reporter, Jamie Paul had been looking for a juicy story to prove she was worthy of her new position. Dan was congenial, but the rest of her colleagues were whispering about how she had gotten the job, questioning her abilities. In her first few weeks at the station, she'd set out to prove that all those billboards with her smiling face around downtown Toronto weren't a mistake. And the best opportunity had come from a tip that snagged her the interview of the year. 10 Past Midnight. The boy band sensation everyone wanted to talk to had agreed to do their first sit-down interview with her. A long-form interview with the media-shy musical talents would prove her journalistic chops. The interview would lead CBN's Sunday night news magazine and would prove definitively that she belonged at the anchor desk of the network's newly minted nightly entertainment program. Truthfully, no one knew what to expect from these darlings of the Canadian music industry. A year on the charts meant they were no strangers to attention and screaming fans. Excuse me. But the budding superstars hadn't sat down together for a tell-all interview. The industry hummed with speculation. Did some of the members have a reason for avoiding media scrutiny? Everyone was waiting for the group to break their silence. One of the members, Indy, had proven to be a bit volatile. The previous month, he'd stormed out of a one-on-one interview when the DJ asked who he was dating. Various members of 10 Past Midnight had been linked to high-profile celebrities, Indy included. A designer from the Home Improvement Network was said to be his latest conquest. Indy's on-air outburst had included several expletives. The tirade, an accompanying viral video, had fan groups abuzz. Haters had come out of their woodwork, calling the group entitled and difficult. Some of them had gone so far to imply that certain members of the band were maybe gay or bisexual, and that was why they didn't want to talk about their love lives. Fan blogs and forums defended Indy's reaction, but the band's reputation had taken a hit. No longer the likable Canadian kids, they'd been labeled arrogant divas, led by a surly hothead named Indy. Even Ian, her normally supportive producer, had raised an eyebrow when she pitched this interview. Are you sure you're ready? This is the big time. It'll cause a media storm no matter what happens. These guys need a public relations win, Jamie had pointed out. Rumor has it they are negotiating their contract with Red Tree right now. After some serious infighting, they need to look empathetic and understanding. They'll be on their best behavior. It's in their best interest to be charming and ingratiating. Trust me. Ian was unconvinced. He was part of the generation of journalists who looked for a good news story and paid minimal attention to online clicks. But Jamie knew that the network needed splashy content to justify the money they'd spent creating their new entertainment program. With newsroom budgets cut to the very bone, relationships with celebrities drove broadcast revenue. It was no secret. Jamie went on, "What's the worst that could happen? Indy storms out again? We'll have it on video, and everyone will tune in to see what he says. Jamie, if this blows up, what we'll have is Red Tree's lawyers warming our office for weeks," Ian cautioned. "We're an entertainment news program, not a gossip blog. We're journalists, not publicists." It was a rebuke, but a mild one, and Jamie was undeterred. "We need a timely, high-profile story to kick things off. Who's more high-profile than 10 past midnight right now?" Ian sighed. "Just be careful." Now he was standing in the corner of the lounge, away from the lights and activities, arms crossed and giving her a quizzical look. Had she forgotten something? Jamie took another look at the setup. The band had insisted the interview be filmed at the offices of their label, Red Tree, whose major claim to fame was finding and launching 10 past midnight. The neighborhood surrounding the Red Tree campus had seemed like an older, established company, but Jamie knew the fledgling label had nearly declared bankruptcy shortly after signing 10 past midnight. They were hungry to prove that their pride and joy, their creative investment, was worth all the attention and accolades they'd already accumulated. The employee lounge was on the second floor, right across the hall from the dance studio and practice space. Windows along one wall revealed a frameable view of Riverdale Park East. The room itself was decorated in soft neutrals with 3 overstuffed couches, surrounded by 2 62-inch televisions and gaming consoles. It looked like a kid's playroom, not the studio of an adult music group. The lounge was also boasted a ping pong table, which had been moved to make room for all the broadcast equipment. A small ivory couch had been appropriated from another room. 3 stools stood behind it. In front of the couch was another stool from which Jamie would ask her questions. Cables for lighting equipment snaked along the carpeted floor, and the windows had been shaded so the natural light didn't overwhelm the space. The sound engineer was ready with the mic packs. Each member of the band would be greeted and offered a drink. Bottled waters waited on a nearby table. Then they would be fitted with a mic. Everything had been choreographed as carefully as one of 10 past midnight's music videos. "Jamie, they're here," said Dan, lighting up like a kid at Christmas. Jamie gave him a clipped thanks. She stood and smoothed her gray plaid slacks and apple green sweater, shooting a questioning look at the camera operator. He responded with the thumbs up. They were already rolling on a handheld camera, hoping to get some B-roll of the band arriving, casual and relaxed. She glanced at Ian, who nodded. Jamie took a breath and once again told herself it was just a simple interview, just like all the others she'd done in her career. She was prepared. The worst that could happen was that Indy would walk out, and she had a plan for that. 10 past midnight entered the lounge like a gym class of high school students. The din reached her before the door even opened. Jamie knew each of the members on site. She'd spent 3 weeks studying their photos, both promotional and candid shots captured and posted all over social media by their fans. She'd read bios posted by their label. Jaxson entered first, the eager look on his face framed by pastel pink hair. The band had been his idea, well, his and Indy's. But behind the smile, Jamie thought she detected a hint of worry. Will and Mac were joking with each other, followed by Bear, who nudged them like an anxious parent to get them to stop giggling. "Hi, I'm Jamie Paul with CBN," she greeted them, extending her hand first to Jaxson. She'd been warned about his pale blue eyes. The remarkable color disarmed many upon first meeting. His black bomber jacket, white dress shirt, and tie gave him a serious look, despite the bubblegum hair. "Jamie, pleasure to meet you. I'm Jaxson," he replied, professional and smooth. "And this," he gestured to the rest of the group, "is 10 past midnight." They all smiled and gave her a small wave. She shook Mac's hand next. The youngest, at 18, he seemed intimidated by the cameras and the lights and the half-dozen crew members gawking at him. "Mac," he said, barely meeting her eyes. He looked like he'd just come from school. Sneakers, ripped jeans, and a patterned red and white cardigan over a white dress shirt and tie. "And I'm Bear." The next member introduced himself with a slight Quebecois accent. Bear's shoulder-length, wavy hair and warm hazel eyes endeared him to fans of all ages. Everything about him held a relaxed ease that made it him impossible not to like. He wore a black leather jacket over a faded green V-neck, jeans, and a newsboy cap. Nice to meet you. Jamie Polish replied with a smile. Bear was even better looking in person. Will came next. His clothes were the most dramatic, a black and white jacket over a burgundy dress shirt. The second youngest, his jet black hair had been dyed a deep blue and carefully styled off his face. His piercing green eyes and angular cheekbones made it easy to see why he'd gotten his start in modeling. Jamie couldn't help but stare at him. If nothing else, 10 past midnight might be the most attractive collection of men in the industry. Jamie didn't recognize the next person in line. He seemed to be in his 30s. He wore a suit jacket over a pair of dark jeans and a ball cap. He introduced himself. Hi, Jamie. I'm Casey Reynolds, the manager of these goose. He smiled. The young woman beside him introduced herself as a publicist, but Jamie didn't catch her name. Oh, hello. Jamie was perplexed. She thought the band would come on their own. The group chatted with the crew as they grabbed the offered water. Then Dan said the last thing she'd expected. Indy's missing. Missing? Jamie could hear the note of panic in her voice. Just running a little late, Casey said with a small shrug. The publicist jumped in with a quick explanation, something about traffic and a tight schedule. Jamie didn't hear her. She couldn't do the interview with only 4 of the 5 members. Her eyes flashed to Ian's. He raised an eyebrow. Jamie had been badly mistaken. Indy storming out wasn't the worst thing that could happen. The worst thing that could happen was Indy not showing up at all. There we go.
Is this thing on? Is yours on?
Is mine on?
They're both on? Okay, awesome. Hi,
Hi.
that was fantastic.
Cute.
It's a really, really good book.
Thank you.
I'm so impressed by the way you would create the tension in each chapter and how the story just like rolls along perfectly. You've nailed it, in my opinion. So
Thank you.
congratulations. Well done.
So sweet. Thank you.
You and me and the Junos, oh my God. In 2005, that was 2 years before the Junos actually did come here, and it almost killed us all. But anyway, it was so busy. So why do you have this fascination specifically for Canadian music? Where'd that come from?
I've always loved music, and I think especially during COVID, I really focused on learning more about what was happening within the Canadian music scene. I wanted to know who were the DJs out there that everybody was following, who were the new bands that were coming out, and yeah, that's what I listened to almost the entire time I was writing was Canadian music. So
No kidding. So how long did this first draft take you?
okay, so I initially wrote a story with these characters, and it didn't work.
What do you
I
mean
shouldn't.
it
I
didn't
shouldn't.
work?
I shouldn't even admit that, right?
No.
It didn't work. I couldn't get the timeline to work, and so eventually, to continue to meet that 1,000 words a day goal, I made the characters interview each other, and I made them interact. And eventually, I was like, well, you know what the most interesting story is how they got together. And so I backed up the story and created this. As soon as I did that, I knew exactly how it was gonna all go, and that all the pieces fell into place. So. Yeah,
That is so interesting.
I'm going to back up though a little bit. If you go to
Yeah.
the end of the book, if you've purchased the book and you go to the end of it, there is a link there that you can follow to the playlist that I listened to while I was writing it. So if you want to check it out, it is on YouTube and it is on Apple Music. So you can also just search for my name on either of those two things and you can find, there's some pretty obscure entries, but there's also some other really great entries. And about 95% of it is Canadian music. So
I
just wanted
totally
to
have to do that.
I just wanted to give a shout out to that.
I totally have to do that. That's going to be so interesting to listen to, like your book soundtrack, so to speak.
Mhm.
Right.
Some of the music is, like I say, really into like the club scene because Indy is the main character and he's a DJ. Some of it though is a little bit less that, a little more easy listening. So there's a good mix in there.
Okay. Very cool. I forgot about the microphone. So, okay. So when we spoke about this
Mhm.
a couple of weeks ago,
Mhm.
you talked about a trip to Toronto where you visited a lot of nightclubs.
Mhm.
And do you feel that, I don't know, I guess was that important to envisioning what was going on in the book? Like, did
Yeah.
that help?
It
Like,
did.
I'm wondering about traveling, you know.
Oh,
Mhm.
I loved my time in Toronto and I loved going there and kind of picking up on what I call the vibe of the city. I know it sounds so woo-woo, but it really did feel like when I was there, I could kind of channel what it felt like to live there. And so that really informed a lot of Indy's take on what was happening. And then to get the feel of some of the clubs in Toronto was really great and fantastic. We went in 2022, which is just as kind of COVID was winding down and venues were starting to host music events. So I did get to the Junos also, in case you were wondering. Yes, and a bunch of other stages. And I got to see Massey Hall, which is one of the most storied venues in Toronto, and really in Canada. It was great. I saw Mother there, which is a bit of a departure if anybody knows what they're like. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So
And you got to the Mod Club.
I got to the Mod Club, which at
Yeah.
that time was called Access Club, but now it's back to being called the Mod
I
Club.
didn't know that. They
Yeah,
changed names.
they changed the
and then
name
changed back.
and then changed back.
Okay, so this Toronto thing is interesting to me because
Yes.
of the character Indy.
Mhm.
So Indy's from Saskatoon,
Mhm.
is it right? Yeah, well, he's certainly from Saskatchewan. I was just trying to, remember. We're both thick. That's all. That's my excuse. And then he ends up in Toronto.
Mhm.
And I think there's a really interesting transition for him there. It's both family and how overwhelming the environment seems at first. But tell me if I'm right here. I think it's even more overwhelming because Indy is neurodivergent.
It seems that way.
Does it?
Yeah,
Am I right?
I didn't want to write him like intentionally that way, but I think he has had a lot of damage from his difficult background. So yeah, it is going to influence how he kind of responds to people. I did try to make him really introverted and quiet, but yet also impulsive, which is really kind of hard and tricky to put in a character without like pages and pages of inner dialogue. But anyway, yeah.
He's very angry at first and
He really
very
is.
he does not like to be touched. He's very insular. And okay, whether he's a neurodivergent or not, there's some
Mhm.
elements that cross over. Is that fair?
Yeah, oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
So why this character? Why did he turn like that? Why was that important for you to write?
I think I think it's important because we need characters who reflect what we see in our lives, but also we need characters that represent people who are neurodivergent, as well as being like bisexual. We need
That was the
that
next
kind of visibility, and it should be normal
Because it is.
because it is.
I think, right?
Right.
Right, because we're just all creatures on this planet who deserve love and all that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So what about Jaxson?
So he was the most difficult character for me to write. He has some serious daddy issues. I won't get too much. But
No spoilers.
spoiler. He was so hard for me to write. He's very ambitious. He's very driven, and he is like this driving force. He is just the thing, this vector that is taking the band straight from obscurity to success. And that just blinds him. It kind of insulates him really from dealing with a lot of the stuff that's going on inside of him until you get to the end. So there is an end scene. When I was writing this, my actual last revision of the book is actually called JJ's Angry Edits.
Oh dear.
Jennifer's Angry Edits, yeah. So I wrote the book and I was trying to send it out to publishers and I wasn't really getting any response. So I took a look at it and you have one of those moments where you're looking at it and you're going, oh, that doesn't work. oh, that doesn't work. So I was off work over Christmas. So I took it apart. I literally took it apart and put it all back together again. And one of the things that changed the most was Jackson's character. And when I got to that end scene, which you will read, and he has an epiphany. And that informed the rest of the book. So I had to go back and change all of his dialogue and his interactions with people to capture that. And I had submitted it to Heather at Your Nicholsworth Publishing. I've never told Heather this, wherever she is. And she sent me a note the first day in January back at work, and she said, "So where's the rest of the manuscript?" And I was like, "Oh,
Oh, dear.
maybe I should edit that and send it to you." So that's how the book came
You
about.
didn't necessarily know the
I
ending before you
didn't. I was
began,
like,
did you?
Okay, so yeah, I spent all night editing it and putting it all back together after I ripped it apart. Yeah.
Did we want to get into why you wrote India as bisexual instead of gay? Did you want to talk about that?
Yes.
Is that important?
It is very important to me. I think that I think we need the visibility of people who are I don't want to say not one or the other but we need people who we can look up to, that give people like, again, that representation that we were talking about. I grew up in rural Saskatchewan, where we didn't even really have verbiage in the 80s for anything that wasn't heteronormative, as you and I were talking that one time. You didn't have the verbiage to say what you felt or what you were feeling inside and how you were going to define yourself. So I wrote the book really in a way for that person, that kid that doesn't have the words or didn't know and wants to see where they belong in the world and wants to see themselves represented in a fictional character. So
Okay, well said. I think there was a time, certainly in my life, but I'm old, where we either had heterosexual people or we had gay people. That was it. We had no proper understanding of the great sea of,
the nuances and
yes,
yep.
of gender identity, sexual interests, and so on.
I am not an expert, by the way.
No, but I think I don't know. I think you feel it in your heart.
Mhm.
You get it in here.
Yeah.
That's when you're writing a novel, that's what counts, right? Okay, good. So how much time do we have, Ben? Can I ask for one or two more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent news. Okay, so I want to talk about your favorite scene to write, because it made me cry my eyes out.
Because it made you cry.
It made me cry. That's what you're supposed to be doing here. It's fine. It made me cry. It was so touching. It was beautiful.
I love that scene too. It is a scene where Indy really lets his guard down for the first time with his grandmother. They're picking out a keyboard. It's the first time where he's like connecting with her, but also with a part of himself. And that's a big thing because he's been so closed off and so shut down. And it has a great line in there, which I will reveal. Yeah, that it felt more like home. This musical instrument felt more like home than any place he'd ever lived. And I love that line when I came up with it, because it really was, it captured Indy's heart, that music was what he was going to do and what he was going to be part of. So yeah.
I love that scene. You know what else I love?
Mm.
I love what you showed me before we started this tonight, which apparently made somebody else in this room cry too. So for those of you who don't know this, there are, depending on the day or, depending, there are probably 7 or 8 of us, depending, who get together for lunch every month on a Friday. And we are called the J Crew, because all of our names, except one, start with the letter J, and our other lovely friend's middle name begins with J, so he's an honorary member. And so we are all, as far as I know, excessively fond of each other. We go for lunch and we have these 1.5 hour lunches that are soul filling and supportive and just fantastic. And there are an awful lot of J members here right now.
Look at them
And
all.
I know, and 2 of them are right here. So there are a bunch of us. And bless her heart, she gave us a nod at the end of the book and made at least 2 of us cry so far. So that was just lovely. I can't believe you gave us any credit. You said, "Oh, are you kidding?"
I had to, as I said to James, I had to. This is a book about friendship, so you have to give a shout out to your families, right?
You do.
The chosen family that you have.
You do.
For sure.
Thank you. Now, what would you like to talk about? Is there anything we haven't touched on that you would like to point out about the book or about your journey, which is another, that's another thing. When I don't know if y'all know this, but you write the book, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Then you have to get it edited. You have to put it in this format with a cover, and then you have to try to sell it. Okay, so this does not. I mean, that's just the first step.
I would like to say, isn't this a gorgeous book?
Yes.
So this cover was designed by a woman named Alexis Patillon. I'm so sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing that. But she lived in Regina and then moved to Toronto. We felt that that was very fitting. So she actually got the Toronto skyline on the back of it. Yeah.
It is gorgeous.
Mhm.
It is. It is.
I want to hang
gorgeous.
this up on my wall. That's how much I love the book cover. So
Why don't you?
I'm going to. I have an high-res version.
Well, there you
It's
go.
printed. I know.
Right.
Well, Richard, let's get him on it.
Yeah. Oh, you know what we need to talk about quickly? Just one more thing before we leave. This is Jennifer's first published book. It is like, I don't know. I don't see a lot of books, particularly by indies. Or people, with small presses who have accomplished this. It is an amazing thing. But there's something else coming from her.
I wrote a memoir, and it took me 10 years to research and write it. And I will be self-publishing it early next year. It is a story. It's called His Name Was James, and it follows my journey discovering who my dad was. I did not know his name until I was 19. It turned out he was a hairdresser, a fairly well-known rock star version hairdresser who would go around hair shows. He was a platform artist. If you don't know what that is, they're the ones. Yeah, they go up onto the stage and they will teach the latest styling techniques, or they will demonstrate the latest products. And my dad was a revered platform artist. And that's how he met my mom, and that's how I came to be. And so we didn't know each other until later in life. And then when he passed away, my stepmother said, "Would you like to write a book about his life?" And I was like, "Sure," because I have a habit of biting off more than I can chew. And so I did, and it only took me 10 years. But yeah, that's the next thing that's coming out, and hopefully it will be all put together. I've been a little distracted with this.
Really? Can't imagine why. This is brilliant. Congratulations.
Thank
I can't believe we're sitting here right now. It's been a while coming, right? Yeah, how does it feel?
It's still surreal.
Yeah.
This does, yeah. Good, but yeah.
Good, but also surreal. Over the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations,
Thank
Jen.
you.
I'm the tech guy. Whoa, that is loud. So at this point, we'd like to turn it over to the audience. Is there any questions that you have for either of our speakers here today? Please don't be shy. Lovely.
So I find it fascinating that you were able to get into the heads and hearts of teenage boys. I have no sons in my family and just one brother, so I don't know how, and you have no siblings like that you grew up with. So how did you do that?
I watched a lot of teen drama.
Do this. Okay.
I watched a lot of teen dramas. I hung out on YouTube and watched a lot of YouTubers. I listened. I read a lot. I also hung out on forums. I listened to what people were wanting and what their hearts were saying, the things that bothered them, the things that they desired, their dreams, that kind of thing. That's what I was listening for when I was watching all the teen dramas. So yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yes. All right. Any others? Oh my gosh, so many.
I kind of had the sense that this might not be a one of, right? Like I felt like you could do like each
Are you
character.
suggesting a sequel?
Yeah.
Would you like a
Yes,
sequel?
I
Okay.
would.
Yeah.
What do you think though?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
She's in.
Yep.
Now, so the book is obviously a love letter to Toronto. How many of the actual clubs and things are real, and how many of them are totally made up?
So I think there's only a couple that are real. I actually have a post about this in my Inspirations newsletter, if you ever want to hear all the details.
That's
But
a Substack.
yes, yeah.
Everybody should follow both of us on Substack. I
Yeah.
gotta say, go on.
So let's see. There's one that is called that Indy refers to a lot. A&D, Adelaide and Duncan. That is actually the address of Crocodile Rock, which closed down in 2020. It was a major party place for Torontonians until then. Levels is kind of a ripoff of Rebel, which I never did make it to. It was a tiny bit intimidating for this small town country girl who's in her somethings. So we didn't make it to that one. We did make it to the Phoenix Theater, which is a little bit iconic and actually was on the cusp of being torn down recently, but they've now pushed that off by a couple of years. And that I saw Dab in there at some unholy hour of the night, according to my daughter. So yeah. Yeah, so most of them have like some sort of root in it. The one where they get their big break, Encore House, is kind of a mashup of Cameron House and Horseshoe Tavern. I kind of mashed them together and made up some details. So most of the clubs have some sort of root in an actual club in Toronto.
Reading the book, you would automatically assume that the character Jamie Paul might have some autobiographical intones. But the more that I got into it, and I've had the privilege of reading the book about your dad already, and actually as I got into it more, I could see there was a real similarity between Indy's background and his anger that might have been coming from your own personal experiences. Would that be accurate?
I would say both books are about finding a place to belong, finding where you fit in the world, and making a choice really to find that place and knowing yourself and how you fit in. But yeah, when I was writing little synopsis of each, I was like, there's a theme here of belonging. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Did you interview any musicians or rock people
Lots of time.
for their?
I did. For this book specifically, I sat down with Jay Semko. He was kind enough to give me an hour of his time, which was 2 questions worth. He was fabulous. I so enjoyed talking to him and their process of how they got signed. I also talked to a recording person, like a person that does the recording. I'm not saying this right. Anyway, I'm so sorry. He kind of walked me through like the sound production, and he had worked at a studio in Vancouver, and so he was giving me kind of like some of the stories that he had from when he worked there recording bands and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that would be the 2 major interviews I did for the book.
Research.
Any other questions?
Right.
So many good questions.
So many good questions.
On at least one more, geez.
You
don't have any?
I don't have any, no, sorry. Well, if we don't have any more questions, then, oh, never mind.
It's more of a testament. So I might have bought a book in a parking lot. And I bought one for my sister, who's not much of a reader. And she read that book in like 2 days straight, and she absolutely loved it.
Oh, that makes my day. Thank you so much.
But you may have.
I'll keep that in mind. Tell her thank you. That's a huge compliment.
That's lovely.
That is so sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're just about out of time, so if there are no other audience questions, oh, actually, let me check the chat real quick.
We're both what?
No questions in the chat, so
Okay.
All right, well, yeah, I think we'll maybe move forward with the signing. Thank you both for being here, and if I could grab another round of applause for these guys.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right, so yeah, if people want to line up, we got our signing table all ready to go. So
A lot of us
Oh,
own this thing already. We snuck in the back door.
Yeah.
Wait, get it signed.
I do.